Get the right to delete it if I screw up, right?
Oh, yeah, we can take two.
Oh, I have to press got it. Can you?
There we go. Okay. So as you're coming in again, feel free to grab refreshments, snacks, food in the back. Thank you all for being here. Good evening, everyone. My name is John Freitag. I'm currently serving as president of the Academic Senate here at BBC. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to our 2023 Senate-sponsored faculty lecture presentation. We appreciate you joining us in person and online. During the presentation, I'll ask that you hold your questions. We will have time at the end for Q&A. And those of you that are online with us will be able to use the chat to ask questions. Let's see. In their proposal, this year's faculty lecture reminded us of our COVID-induced shift to remote education and learning, and now our post-COVID efforts to return to normal, whatever that means. Their proposal calls on us to instead think about this current era as one of reinvention of our practices and our entire institution. For us to use this opportunity to become more focused on our students and all of our staff as full people. For us to rebuild our practices, our pedagogy, and institution on anti-racism practices, which requires a profound transformation on the part of those with power and privilege. This proposal resonated with the Academic Senate Council, who selected BBC Professor of English, Adam Bessie, as this year's faculty lecturer. On behalf of the entire Senate Council, congratulations, Adam. Let me tell you. Let me tell you a little bit about this year's lecturer. Adam Bessie began his career in education in 2002 as a substitute high school and middle school teacher and track coach. While teaching started as a means to support his writing habit, it quickly became a passion, and he enrolled in San Francisco State University's Master in English Composition program, which focuses on preparation for teaching English in college. In the fall of 2005, Adam fell in love with BBC as he roamed the vibrant Pleasant Hill campus before interviewing to be a supplemental instructor. Since then, BBC has been Adam's home as an educator, first as a teacher's assistant, then as an adjunct faculty member, and for 14 years now as a full-time professor. During this time, Adam has served in many roles, including as co-coordinator of the English Learning Center, a co-founder and co-chair of the James O'Keefe Prize for Graphic Literature, and the faculty representative for the CARE team, which focuses to help students of concern or those experiencing emotional, financial, and other crises. Adam has also kept up his writing career as a graphic storyteller, writing comics in collaboration with artists who have been published in national outlets such as The New Yorker, The Atlantic, the Los Angeles Times, the Boston Globe, the Project Censored book series, and much more. In 2017, Adam and his artistic collaborator won the New York Association of Black Journalists Online Reporting Award for a graphic essay about racial segregation in the New Orleans school system. His first book, Going Remote, A Teacher's Journey, beautifully illustrated by Peter Glanting, who I noticed has joined us online. Hi, Pete. Is forthcoming by the Censored Press and 7 Stories Press this May. And he is our 60th Academic Senate faculty lecturer. Please welcome Professor Adam Bessie.
I want to say, the person that interviewed me for the job here is right there, Heidi Goen Salter. So you can thank, or be mad at Heidi for all of this. Thanks everyone for being here. It's just really an enormous honor. And when I was in the depths of COVID, as you'll see, I couldn't have imagined that we'd be back in such a beautiful community space like this. And so I wanted to start with, speaking of community, a land acknowledgement to, are we gonna not work now? What did we do last time that made it work?
Click, there you go.
Okay, now, it just worked a minute ago. Okay, how is it gonna work? Yes, now it's working. The technology knows I'm about to critique it, so I think it's you know, the Terminator AI is coming against me. Don't get me ChatGPT, please. So I want to, and this comes from Ray Clapper. Thank you, Ray, if you're here. I want to acknowledge and recognize that the Pleasant Hill campus of DVC sits on the ancestral and unceded land of the Bay Miwok, and a cultural linguistic group of the Miwok, the native peoples who had California as their home long before colonization. The land was and continues to be of great importance to the Miwok people. We recognize that every member of the DVC community has and continues to benefit from the use and occupation of this land since the institution's founding in 1949. Consistent with our values of equity and inclusion, we have a responsibility to acknowledge and make visible the college's relations to the native peoples. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm the indigenous sovereignty and will work to hold DVC more accountable to the needs of American Indian and indigenous people. Thank you. So much of this lecture is built around this book that I just got a copy of this week, Going About a Teacher's Journey, which is in the bookstore. And as you'll see, it is a graphic memoir. I'll talk more about that in a minute. And was published by the Censored Press, which Mickey Hopp is one of the editors and publisher on that, and Censored Press out of New York. This was written and illustrated from March 13th, 2020. That's literally when I started making this. And I finished writing and making it in March 2022, so it took over a year for it to exist in this physical form. It's based on my experience here at DVC, though in the book it's called East Bay College. It focuses on my personal pandemic experience as a professor, a cancer patient, a parent, partner, and human being. And it invites us to consider the book and this presentation. How do we stay present and together in a time that pushes us to be remote and isolated? And folks that are online, you didn't hear the wonderful buzz power in the room. That's really what I'm thinking about. How do we have more moments like this where we're together in one space at one time, connecting with each other? And this presentation, that's my drawing. As you can see why I had Peter draw the book, that's where I'm at. So this presentation is going to be part reading of a lot of the book, part lecturing and me riffing, and part you guys making art. So no art experience is required. I want each of you right now to make a little avatar of yourself. Like for me, you can see it's just a circle face, and I put my little hat on. And I have my ear, that's it. So that's what I want you to do. If you're online, you need to do this too. Pete, the artist, you don't go, I know you're gonna make something detailed. Pete, don't do that. I see people are using the wall. I love that. Use your leg. I don't know what you're gonna use. I didn't think this through. But you can't think. That's the most important part of this. You're not allowed to think or draw something good. It has to be bad. Just literally draw an avatar of yourself, whatever. Don't criticize it, all right? So we'll be doing this throughout the presentation. Like I'll have you stop and doodle something, and I'm gonna remind you to not think. You're not like being perfectionistic, you're just like vomiting stuff out. All right? Okay, raise your hand when you have like a doodle of yourself. Okay, a little avatar of yourself. And at the end of the presentation, I'd love to like see what you do. So I want to start with the old adage that it's better to show than tell. All English teachers know that. So I'm going to redo the first part of the first chapter that I wrote. It's actually the third chapter in the book, but this is what I wrote starting March 13th, 2020. All right, this is the third chapter, going remote. March 12th, 2020. We're going remote starting next week. For how long? I just don't know, Susie. But I've never had an online class, Mr. Bessie. Me neither. We fled the cloud to escape the virus. Millions and millions of students and educators across the country, all in less than a week. Those are all little Zoom tiles people are getting sucked into. Our community college classroom is now a diaspora, tethered loosely together for a few hours a week by online tools. Mommy, oh. Tools educators may have heard of, but many never use with students as the only means of instruction. Ooh, is my mic on? Can you hear me? Who remembers that? Is my mic on? Can you hear me? Yes, the crowd is like, yeah. Tools built by for-profit, publicly traded Silicon Valley corporations suddenly became mandatory, adopted en masse by millions in the span of a week. They are now subjects in the great Zoom school experiment. And it is interesting that we are hybrid now. I think that speaks to something that we'll get into later. Welcome to Cloud College. And just a more close detail, that's the Zoom panel flying into it. And on the bottom here are all the people on the ground that don't have access to get up to Cloud College. Unlike community college, Cloud College has strict admission requirements. Access to a computer, stable Wi-Fi, a quiet space. The admission requirements are now set by software requirements. Not compatible, student drop, like that robot voice. You'll be hearing more. The first generation college students, English language learners, low income students, working class. These are the students most likely to be left behind in the exodus online. The very students community college is designed to teach. Hello, hello. Will Susie ever come back? Anyone relate to that when you were in Cloud College? You couldn't connect, you just dropped off. Keep Susie in mind. She comes back later in the presentation. Wherever we are, we're all now squares, identical in size, dimension, proportion, equal tiles in a perfect grid. And what do you think about Art Spiegelman's motives for him? Anyone know who Art Spiegelman is, by the way? Tracy, could you tell us who Art Spiegelman is?
The prize-winning author of the graphic novel Mouse.
Mouse, about the Holocaust. Yes. Jorge, are you there? What the grid doesn't show is all those left behind in our escape. It's as if the students were never there at all. They leave no residue, no evidence they were ever in a quote classroom. Jorge, keep Jorge in mind, he'll come back later. Even when the students are here, they all still feel remote. Many of the students turn their cameras off or say that they don't have a working one. A little black box represents a real live student. Flattened, blacked out, mute. Is anybody here? And when the cams are on, Zoom encourages us to become cartoons of ourselves. The square is a comic metal strip. We animate ourselves into virtual environments. One student even had a virtual avatar of himself. True story. Is there even a student under that mask? But it was already like this before the pandemic. Zoom didn't invent the problems of inequity, standardization, and corporatization that have plagued our public schools. That have shoved students into black boxes on mute, that have served as flattened silence to dehumanize. They just aren't so visible, so painfully visible as they are now. What will happen when we return to ground? Who will return? Who will never come back? Who will students be? Who will teachers be? What will the classroom be? Now it's all up in the air, in the clouds. So in this moment, I don't know about you all, but I had such a profound grief and disorientation that was like vertigo. In many different ways. And before I tell you some of the questions that came to me at that time, we're going back to our cartoon to lighten the mood a bit. I want you to return to your stick figure and I want you to create a speech or thought bubble. And I don't want you to think, I just want you to write words of the first memory you had around that moment when you knew you'd have to be remote. Again, don't think deeply, just what comes to you first. When I wrote the chapter that you just saw, that's what I did first. I just started writing and drawing things. That image of Cloud College started with me drawing in my notebook a bunch of jacked up things that the artist turned into beautiful things. I started to ask the most fundamental questions, maybe like all of us, like really basic questions, because I was so disorientated. I've been teaching since 2002, 2020, many years of teaching. I'm like, what is teaching even? What is learning? Who is a student? Who is a teacher? What is a classroom? What is a class? What is a campus even? I mean, it's like the most basic, fundamental question. Anyone else start thinking about all those things too? I did. That's why I wrote this whole book. And I wondered, like, do we even need a teacher anymore? That question has become even more prescient with ChatGPT, but we'll come back to that. And by the way, I've been thinking about this a lot, and so did the founder of Duolingo. Anyone use Duolingo? It's a language app. So I was on the elliptical trainer and saw this article, and he said, artificial intelligence will eventually make computers better teachers than people. And he said, we've all gone to school, some teachers are good, but the vast majority are not all that great. And I really want people to be able to learn for free. I asked ChatGPT what it thought, and it said that I still should have a job. So ChatGPT said that I'm unlikely to be replaced by AI, but I'm thinking ChatGPT is playing a long game. Matthew Powell, one of our wonderful distinguished professors of history and African American studies at Convocation Day, asked this question: what is the campus anymore? Is the campus even relevant to students' lives? And I want to just linger on that for a minute. These are basic questions. Do we even need a teacher or even a campus to be educated? These are the kind of things that were in my own mind broiling and still are. And this leads us to a big question. Now that we're in a room together at the same place at the same time, what does it mean to return? Is it even possible to return? Is it even desirable to return? So what does that even mean? Is this a new beginning? Or are we at the beginning of the end of community college? And I'm not being hyperbolistic. I think those are the stakes that we're in right now. So I want us to now go back, so we're talking about returning, and I'm going to take us to pre-COVID. This is January 25th, 2020, BC, before COVID. All right. The golden age, which is in quotes. All right. So that's me stepping out of my car. I didn't ever know if I'd set foot here again. I wasn't just walking back on campus for the first time in 8 months. I was backing back to a part of myself I thought might be gone. And again, this was before the pandemic. Okay. This is how it feels to return to campus. This is the campus, and that's the number of people that it felt like were on campus. Vibrant, loud, full. Was it always this busy? It all looks the same as when I left. It certainly smells the same. Cloud of Axe body spray. The stanky tree. There's like a tree over here that just reeks. Anyone else know that tree? Yeah, it's disgusting. Strawberry flavored vape. I breathe it all in. God, I miss this. And for me, campus was not just like a place that I went, like it really has been my home. There's my son, Saul, at the DVC wonderful ECE daycare in 2013, and you can see he's holding a stack of papers. We have, how many folks have their kids in the ECA right now? People in the back, yep. And it's again, not just a place, but I'm not just teaching, I just don't come in and leave. I have friends here, people I've known for 20 years. I know their kids, they've grown up. I have colleagues that I've come to love that have passed away, whose memorials are on this campus. This is a place that has really deep, full meaning to me and to many of us. It's not just a place, it is filled with memory and community. What is community college? Like many community colleges, ours draws a diverse range of social classes, identities, ages, backgrounds. New high school students from across the street, international students from across the Pacific, formerly incarcerated people, student athletes, single moms, combat veterans, farm kids, aspiring rappers, undocumented immigrants, and I could go on forever. And that's what I was drawn to community college for, this idea of open access. I hope that neither class, race, nor background, nor disability would prevent students from joining us. That all would be here and have a more fair shot in an unfair socioeconomic system. That was the dream. And that's really a family legacy, because my father, that's my dad, that's a picture from 1953, when he was on Santa Monica Junior College campus. My dad was someone that was never supposed to go to college. He grew up in the Great Depression in horrible circumstances. And he found his way to his local community college, which took him. Ultimately, he ended up going to serve in Korea for 2 years in the Bazooka squadron, and came back to community college again, hard of hearing, because you're the Bazooka squadron, you lose your hearing. And he was profoundly disabled, could only have about 20% hearing, which is why you might notice I talk very loud, because I spent my childhood trying to communicate with a father who was essentially deaf. My father went on to transfer ultimately to USC and got a degree in physical therapy, and treated over 1.5 million people in his life, and made it such that I could go to a UC and serve all of you. So very much to me, community college is my home, and I don't see that I would have the privileges and position I have now without the ability he had in community college to get where he went. Community college aspires to open doors. That's what I did for my father. That's the dream. Things are about to take a turn. But for me, the last 8 months before 2020 was a different sort of dream. Publicly, I was on sabbatical to write a memoir about surviving brain cancer for the last decade, which I have, all while starting my teaching career and building a family. But it wasn't a distant memory. I hadn't beaten cancer. By the way, that's not the cancer, that is actually Jabba the Hutt, which is really, that's really in my office. There's a Jabba the Hutt from 1983 from when I was a kid. The cancer was still active in my brain. I was on chemotherapy. Would it work? Would I survive? And if I did survive, would I ever teach again? Would I have a class like this one? This is based on a real photo of my science fiction fantasy class. And it was Halloween day, and all the students walked in dressed in the same outfit as me. And all of them came holding a Diet Coke, because I walked into that afternoon class with a Diet Coke. So I was in class, the class was empty, and then everyone walked in together late with the Coke. Yeah, it was amazing. They had their Professor B suit on, and we were reading a story about Octavia Butler. Anyone know who that is? Famous Black female sci-fi author. And I'm really honored that my press publishes her work too. So that was great. Story called Blood Child, which is a chilling story of an alien planet. We'll come back to that later. And as I was looking at this picture, I started to think, like, have I just become a cartoon of myself? Where am I? The chemo had worked. I had returned. But still, I felt so removed from that moment, from that man, from the community. It's as if I'd arrived on campus that day from a distant land, an alien planet that philosopher Susan Sontag calls the kingdom of the sick. On the outside, I looked like Professor B, just as I did 8 months ago. But inside, who was there? And could I teach anymore? Did I even belong here? I'd gone remote. So, come back to your stick figure self. I think this is a big question or a thesis of this speech. What sense of belonging do you feel at DVC right now? Do you feel connected or remote? I just want you to be real, like just right now. If you're not at DVC, just maybe wherever you are, whatever you're doing. But again, come back to that stick figure. You might make a new stick figure. I don't know. And just sense, like, don't think, just word, like, do you feel connected? Do you feel alienated? Do you feel isolated? Do you feel sometimes connected and sometimes isolated? And in that moment, the thing I'm trying to get across is the campus was the same, quote unquote, but I was different. And I felt like an imposter. I don't know if anyone else has felt that coming back from the pandemic at all. We'll get to that later. So this story is crazy and people don't actually believe that it happened, but it did. This section of our speech is called The End of the World as We Know It, and I Feel Fine. This is February 15th, a month before, and COVID was already happening, but we didn't know it. I was teaching a science fiction class, and I'm not kidding you, the unit was called The End of the World as We Know It, the Literature of the Apocalypse. We were doing a unit on all stories about the world ending. And that wasn't because I thought COVID was gonna end anything, I'm not prophetic. I just really like dystopias. Not real ones that we live through, but you know, the ones in books. And the story we were reading was a story called The Machine Stops, which was written in 1909. And I'm gonna give you part of it. Imagine, if you can, a small room, hexagonal in shape, like the cell of a bee. And in the armchair, there sits a swaddled lump of flesh, a woman about 5 feet high with a face as white as fungus. A faint blue light shone across the apparatus, darkening the purple, and presently she could see the image of her son, who lived on the other side of the earth and could see her. This is 1909, the author imagined FaceTime. So each person is in their own private cell, and they sit in a chair that feeds them, and when it's the appropriate time, kills them. And they just talk to each other across screens all day, because the air outside is toxic. And you can't go outside. Who is it? Asked the mother, talking to her son. Mother, I want to speak to you through, not through the wearisome machine. I see something like you in this place, but I do not see you. I hear something like you through this telephone, but I do not hear you. Oh, hush. One mustn't say anything against the machine. Why not? One mustn't. You talk as if God had made the machine. The machine is much, but not everything. How prophetic was this story, huh? And again, we were reading this a month before we all were inside on screens. This is Jamila. She will come back to her very shortly. She's African-American, 18 years old, she graduated high school early, takes care of her younger sister. And she was just really the power in the space. She had so much energy and dynamism. You know those classes where they kind of like don't have any energy? This class would sometimes fall into that, but then she would like pull everyone in and it would be great. And this one moment was great where they were talking about the story and how it reminded them of the story Wall-E. Anyone know Wall-E, the Pixar film? And at this moment, you know, after all this wondering about could I come back to teaching, would it be good? There was this one moment we were reading, it just felt like the power was back on. Like I was here, I'd come back home. And this is the moment I missed on leave last semester, especially in the bad days when chemo coursed through my system, isolated in my own cell, the cancer cell. It's one of my favorite images in the whole book. It really, in one image, captures the feeling of imprisonment when dealing with a serious illness, and maybe the sense of imprisonment we all dealt with when imprisoned by the lockdown. I was so excited, we're in groups. And there's this moment when the class is no longer just a random collection of students, but a community. Who knows that feeling? Like it clicks. It happens in some classes, not in others. Listen to that, the buzz, the conversation all converge together as a singular sound composed of many voices. That's what I heard when I walked in here. You could feel that. There's an invisible force, an electrical current that flows through the room, through not just the voices, but facial expressions and body language. An infectious energy that transcends the particular people, the particular story, even myself as a teacher. This is what powers the class. In this moment, there's power. You can feel it too. Any teachers here know what I mean? Like you can feel it going through your body. The student, if you have the right moment, you can feel it. And you can use this power drawn from the community. This organic energy, this crackle, produced by the students' active engagement. Questions, critical inquiry, conversation, passion, compassion, and imagination can improve the lives of students, but also transform the community itself. Students are the power in the room. is a great quote that really is underneath this whole book by legendary educator Bob Moses. Anyone ever heard of him? He was one of the founders of SNCC, which was a civil rights organization, and used civil rights techniques to unlock the power in his math classroom. And so all of his strategies were about how do you get students to be the focal point of everything and unlock their power. And that's what a great teaching session, learning session feels like. And I want you to stop again. And I want you to recall, do you remember such a time, whenever it was, where you could feel that happening in that space? Just real quickly, you don't need to write it down. You can if you like these cartoon pauses. If you don't like them, don't do it. But that moment when you could feel that power happening, like you're flowing. You guys know what I mean about the flow state? You're lucky when it happens. Take a minute there and just put something down. Now you can probably see where this is maybe going. At the end of the machine stops, the story, hate to spoil it, but guess what happens? The machine stops, everything falls apart. Right? And that's what happened to all of us, right? The machine of society and education stopped. And for me, my entire career of well over a decade was based on the human craft of being in a classroom with people. And I felt completely and utterly lost. How do I make, that's my job, to make power in the room. How do I do that when there is no room? And Lauren, my partner, who's right here, she teaches high school in Marin County, social studies. Both of us shared what we call the teaching bunker, which was our classroom in exile. That was my garage. And it was like on the Zoom camera, it looked kind of like we had books behind us. Anyone else see this? Like we shaped it so it looked like a classroom. There was like a lawnmower over there and like a bunch of garbage outside of the video. But I tried to keep it where it was like a recreation of a classroom. That's all I knew. I had no other knowledge of what I'm supposed to do. Because we were back online, what, in like a week? I don't know what I was doing. In the Zoom class, one day I joked, because they were writing a paper on it still, like, oh, this is like the machine stops, and nobody like laughed. It was like dead silence. It was not funny. And it was felt remote. And so in this time, you know, again, I clung to what I knew because I didn't know what else to do. Anyone else relate to that idea? Did not know how else to be a teacher. In this, the office space became this sort of replication or simulacra of what I'd done before. And I did that with my teaching persona as well. I put on my hat. I would screw in my smile, even though I was terrified and confused. I would get my dad jokes going. And I would become Professor B, a simulation of myself. I follow my pre-COVID algorithm, as much for myself as for them. And then I reflected on this, and again, I wrote this a couple of years ago. Perhaps in time, with enough data, my body and my brain won't be needed. Just my copy, my scan. And again, I come back to that now in 2023. I'm still pondering that, but we're not there yet. For me, I felt like at this point I had fallen off of Cloud College. I wasn't just one of those students. Like I didn't know if I had a job anymore or if this is something I could ever do again. And so that's me falling out of Cloud College. And this led to, now again, at the same time, I'm still on cancer monitoring, which I've had probably 60 to 70 MRIs in the last 15 years. Who knows what an MRI is? Anyone have the dishonor of going through one? So I've done it many times. They put you in this machine and it's like you're just strapped into it, and you have a head MRI, your head is strapped into it. It's like a torture device, and I began to say, well, I can't leave, because what the hell, what else am I gonna do? I don't have any other skills. I gotta figure it out, I gotta reinvent. I have to figure something else out, and I began to look at everything in the world as if through an MRI. So an MRI, if you've been one, it sounds like a 90s era, like modem or like techno. For me, I have a lot of time to think, so I felt like I'm inside of a giant robot. And the ear-splitting screeches are like magnetic cameras. They take pictures past my hair, flesh, and bone. A scanner revealing my brain. I often felt alone with this, a subject in the kingdom of the ill, passing invisibly amongst the well. But now it seems the whole world has joined me here. We are now all in the kingdom of the ill. So I used my MRIs. I just started to sort of rethink everything about what I've known about teaching in this time. And I'm gonna move us past the cartoon pauses, because that'll take forever, if that's okay. But these are questions to think about. It revealed things that I already thought of, but I saw them much more clearly. Anyone else in the room have that experience? It just became very clear then. And for me, something that I'd already written and thought about became far more clear during this time and informed my own reinvention. The golden age that my father had gone through was not really a golden age for everybody, or at all. The community college is, in all schools in America that are public schools and most private schools, are basically built on a factory assembly line model. Right? You have classes start at this time, end at this time, you move to the next one, things are divided into units, things are graded like an assembly line. Everything is structured in that particular fashion, and each of us tries to create some humanity and power within those spaces. Teachers and students are often within our systems treated as machines and not people. The product is success merely defined via data related to pass rates, retention, and completion of degrees. Wellness, happiness, morality, none of that matters in a way in terms of money coming into the school. If a teacher or student cannot succeed, then they are considered to be defective and tossed off the assembly line. That's what it feels like, I mean, in the worst case scenarios. Does this sound familiar to anybody? And it's not that any individual teacher is doing this, this is the ideology of the system. And the thing that became much more clear to me is the way in which this system also is not objective, neutral, or unbiased. That the community college factory privileges those with existing privilege by race, class, gender identity, disability, and citizenship. Now, again, I mentioned my father. He came from the poorest of the poor, but he was a white guy. And he told me when I told him about the speech, I said, well, what was your campus like? He's like, I don't remember any non-white folks except for the black folks in the football team with me. That's it. And so I think that was clear to me, but became much more clear. And that leads us to, I'll read you part of a section called White Space of the book. This takes place in June 2020, right amidst the protest and the uprising against the murder of George Floyd by police officers, which did happen, though sometimes it feels as if it's gone down the memory hole and has been forgotten. So I went with my son Saul to downtown Oakland a week after the march. And we had lived in Oakland for a long time. We walked along the beautiful murals that were all laid along the protest route. Did anyone go there and see that at the time? I went there taking pictures and trying to talk to my son about what had happened and what it would mean. And it was empty. The city was empty like I'd never seen it. And I was reminded of Octavia Butler's story Speech Sounds, which you can get for free on a PDF anywhere on the internet. And in this story, it was one of the last stories we read. It was about in a future Los Angeles where an illness of unknown origin wipes out most of the world, leaving it all but empty. Bad timing to teach that story. The few survivors left are brain damaged. The communicative functions are hardest, speech, hearing, and understanding, so people can't communicate with each other in this apocalypse. Society's collapsed, the survivors that are left are in this vast and violent silence. And in Oakland, it felt like the silence was violent. I don't know if that makes any sense. The silence is born of great illness. What illness has befallen us here? What illness killed George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Oscar Grant? What sickness has seized white folks' ears, our eyes, our voice, our bodies, so that we cannot even see the suffering of Black folks? Novelist Zadie Smith sees in George Floyd's murder a viral illness, contempt. These are the names of folks, Black folks that were killed or severely beaten by police. His murderer was infected with the vicious case of this contagion, which infects not just individuals, but systems, institutions, and whole communities. The community college is widely honored as a truly democratic, multicultural institution, but that's not the whole story. According to research by Dr. Jennifer Mendoza, it was founded over 100 years ago, infused with racist, pseudoscientific theories of eugenics. Yes, that was something I discovered in my reading during the George Floyd era. With the intentional design not to lift up the marginalized, but to exclude them from four-year colleges. The community college was born steeped with the virus of classist and racist contempt. Much has changed, but is it enough? My college is a white space. That's not a term I came up with, it's a scholarly term to describe spaces that are dominantly white folks or controlled by white folks. Despite the racial diversity of the student body, the faculty, administration, and staff are almost all white. And while we applaud progressive values of equity, diversity, and social justice, those with the power in the classroom and the institution are predominantly white. How much have things changed since 100 years ago? Here's Jamila again. I reflected on her. Jamila was the power in the classroom. She was also the only Black student in that room. But as soon as we had gone remote, she disappeared. Jamila remained on the roster, her full name, student ID, number, email. I emailed her a number of times, and all I received in return, silence. What happened to Jamila? There could be many reasons she never returned my emails, nor returned to class. But from what I could see, the students that were most likely to disappear, the most likely to fall into silence, were students like Jamila. Is our college complicit in our silence? Am I complicit? And I think that was the big MRI transformation, is that I really internalized the responsibility for being a powerful person in this space in a way that I had not done before this era. And I thought about the history of community college, and there's a tension between these variables constantly that goes back and forth. It's not a progressive thing. It seems like there's a back and forth tension between inclusion and exclusion, access denied, belonging and other, being close or being remote, anti-racism and racism, presence and absence, power and powerlessness, voice and silence, and maybe most importantly, action and inaction. And when I thought more deeply about why are students like Jamila disappearing and being excluded in this way, I began to see, again, moving back to that factory model thinking, the ways in which the classroom, again, if it's in a factory model, is not treating people like people. This section is called the fall, and that's after the summer. I need to run this out of my system. There's nothing more I can do now, right? And this is true. Every morning in the pandemic, I'd get up and go take a run, so I could feel my body because I was sitting so much. Before my daily dawn run, I scan my infinite inbox for issues. Usually it's a tech problem. I feel more like an IT guy than an English teacher. More email than man. And I get things like, can't download file, discussion won't post, video glitch. Does this sound familiar to any teacher? I almost skipped past her email in my morning scan. It wasn't titled anything dramatic. Late homework, maybe? Professor B, I'm sorry that the homework is late, having issues. Attempted suicide. This is a true story. I immediately contacted my department chair. It was like 6 a.m. Student emailed me regarding suicide attempts. My department chair responded, Adam, file a crisis report to the care team. Here's the suicide prevention number. This doesn't have to be on you. But how could it not fall on you? Thankfully, my email and the report went to the care team. They connected the student services. And the care team, which I serve on now, I've been doing it since this time, deals with homelessness, hunger, domestic violence, substance abuse, financial hardship, mental health, all that. So I was able to pass that over to them. But at that time, and now, this wasn't an anomaly. I filed more care reports that month than in a whole year. I feel more like an untrained social worker than an English teacher. Grandfather died. I had a panic attack. I lost my job, sleeping in my car. These are all real things I got during that semester, not made up stuff. Bipolar disorder recently diagnosed. Serious fever, breathing worse, hoping not COVID, going to the hospital. Why did they reach out to me? I mean, I'm just an English teacher and it doesn't even really feel like that most of the time. I can't provide what I'm best at doing as a teacher, creating community. And after 6 months being remote from relationships, we are cut off from community when we need it most. I feel that now still too. Despite my best efforts to help students feel a part of a community through a remote platform, to experience the buzz, that raw organic power that the soul of the classroom, we feel more like a ghost in the machine. Clouds of texted image rather than flesh, blood, and bone. And it's not just COVID that's wrong. The technological platforms are not really what I'm blaming here. Rather, it's that the most essential community care has been gutted by the cutthroat capitalist state. It deems many of my students disposable, African-American, Latinx students, trans students, I could go on and on, that are unworthy of basic community support, access to healthcare, affordable housing, economic stability, and even food. Ensuring that any crisis, personal or pandemic, sends the vulnerable off the edge. And that's what I thought about Jamila. I don't know why she's gone. Maybe she just needed to do something else, or maybe she committed suicide. I don't know. As a teacher, I felt so hopeless in the face of this suffering. I became a member of the care team. And I learned that my caseload was a small part of a much larger caseload. And we worked on all these fronts to provide things that should be provided by the state, but are not. And it gave me a second wind. I started to realize how I would return. This was part of that reinvention. This would be part of my work from here on out. It's a start, but it really didn't feel like enough. It felt like triage, that we're treating the symptoms and not even for the vast majority of students. Students are trapped in a system that is built on contempt. That's sacred names and guilt. And I still feel like we're in the kingdom of the ill. And something I hear a lot when I talk to folks, and something I felt early on was, well, it's not my job. I'm just a teacher. What can I do? I'm not trained for this. And hi, Joella. I told you I'd say hi to you and embarrass you. Don't be sorry. I felt that too. But if somebody sends you an email, they're going to commit suicide. How is that not your job? And I started to think about, well, what is my job now? And well, I even have a job to return to. So now we're getting towards homecoming. That's Jamila again. And this takes place last year, the first time I came back to campus in person, although I was teaching remotely, just on campus. When we went remote on Friday, March 13, 2020, this is what I hoped on return. After a period of exile in Cloud College, we would step back on ground and leave our isolation chambers. It would be a homecoming. We would reunite under the stanky tree, so engrossed in our conversation, we wouldn't notice the stank. But this is what was there. Now, it's maybe a bit more dramatic than it was, but that's how it felt. I spent most of my time at the ACL Center with the couple people that were there, and we had a nice time. But basically, it was an empty place. Instead of a homecoming, silence. Most days, it feels like a community college without a community. And that's again, that question I begin thinking, is this a new beginning or are we done? Where there was once a stream of students jostling and pushing and pulling, it's now a trickle. A hall with a dry riverbed, a nearly empty aqueduct. And something I need to say is that we talk about one reason I don't like the word return is that it makes the people that never return invisible. I can't tell you how many people I've loved that are gone, and there was no ceremony or memorial or anything to acknowledge that profound loss of, I'm not talking about loss of life, that's another thing, but loss of faculty here, of staff, and of students that never came back. So one reason I don't like the word return is because many did not and will not return. And I want to give you some data. There's a recent article from Inside Higher Education called The Great Resignation at Community Colleges. In the nation, from January 2020 to April 2022, we lost 13% of employees. That doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a lot of people. We lost over 1 million students nationwide and 400,000 students in California. Now, those numbers are increasing, which is great, but now there are other trend lines that explain this that are not just related to COVID, but nonetheless, it's profound. And because we get our money a lot from enrollment, that's a big problem. And these are not just numbers. These are people that have names and histories that were part of the community that I knew and cared about and are no longer here. And then we lost, like, one of the main things of being a teacher is you're in the class by yourself. You have so many conversations with people outside, like this. They're not officially in a class, but you needed to be here. And that was essentially gone. Now, I did have some great, little meetings with people, like this was Jorge, a student, and I never forget this. They came into my office wearing 2 masks, a face shield, and then also Jorge has the same hat as me. And I didn't know who it was because the person looked like they were in a science fiction film. And he goes, "This is me, Jorge." Jorge had been on the Zoom. I said, "Of course, how are you? I haven't seen you since." "Oh, there's a proofreading here." "Great. I'll have to fix that in the next printing." See, you still make proofreading errors, right? Since the graphic novel course, I was just thinking about balance. And I don't know about you, but at that time, and even still now, I've like forgotten this old social norms. I'm like, how am I like a person? Has my mask gone right? Are we far enough apart? How do I greet that? So I just said, "Great hat." And he said, "Great hands had alike." I love that term. That's way funnier than me. And I said, "I'm learning how to be in person again, to be a person again." I gotta be honest, I still feel like I don't know if anyone else feels that way. Like I'm still figuring out, like, how do I be a human being again? I don't know. And I at that time, and this is the time I finished my book because I had a deadline. And I had to finish it. I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen, which is a very hard end of a book to write. But I think it worked out. It still felt up in the clouds. And this is one great moment that our campus's chorus was down on the ACL, and they were all singing in masks, which was such a moment. That I said, as soon as I went there, I said, that's the end of my book. And I didn't have any idea what happened next as I finished the book, and that was the truth. And this is what happens next. That's a picture of me in class. And that's like a couple weeks ago. Yeah, that is not a great picture of me. I do not. And these are some of my lovely students in my English 122. Maybe they're online, they're not here. Sorry, Daniel, I didn't put your class in here. You got Eileen, you've got Desi over there, Joy, Taylor, Malik. That student is actually not in my class and just friends with the other student and just walked in. But those kind of things are important. Then you meet somebody, right? You make a connection. The campus feels alive sometimes. I mean, this feels alive to me. The enrollment, though, is still far below pre-pandemic levels. I mean, that's just facts. And there's signs of growth. Many more students have returned to ground. And again, I put that in quotes because we can be, as we are now, here, but online. All of us are kind of now hybrids. But this is one of the main reasons I wanted to give this speech. I still feel like there's not any here a lot of times. I'll be in my office and there's just nobody around at 3 PM. Nobody. I don't have anyone to talk to. I get a paper and I need to consult. Nobody. And the other thing about returning is all of us who've come back, we've changed. Who would agree with that? Like, we're not the same people as when this all started. So this idea of returning to me is problematic because we're different. And we need the campus to be different. And I mean the campus physically and digitally to be different, to meet that. I worry that we're too in a fossilized pre-COVID state, and we need to move and seize creating together as people on the front lines what the next era is. And these questions still burn in me of how do we reinvent thinking about the most basic questions of what education means. And I want to start with who's a student because none of this exists without students. That's the point. That can be forgotten. The reason I get paid, the reason this building's here, all of it is students, like the students that have come here today. We have to acknowledge everyone here has survived a horrible effing pandemic and that makes us resilient and strong. If people are showing up here on campus, they're strong, or online, they're strong. And I think that needs to be honored first, and we gotta not memory hold that happened. It did happen. And as someone, as a teacher, and as a care team, there are many more reported mental health challenges. I get probably 2 to 3 emails a week from students telling me they're having some major issue. This is dramatically different than pre-COVID. And I wanted to mention too, I think there's a lot less stigma around talking about mental health, so that may explain some of the reporting. People seem much more open and being clear, which I think is a great development. Many are grappling with profound learning loss and time away from the classroom. That's a real thing. We are still grappling with structural racism. That hasn't changed. We have incidents of graffiti, although that's overt racism, but things are still in place that were before. And we have to acknowledge there's a climate of fear from mass shootings, climate change. I mean, there's a lot of things that are a real part of the composition of being a student right now. And they're much more plugged in, and from my observations, they're craving community and connection with other people. I want to, though, emphasize the mental health crisis in the youth. This is an article from the APA recently. In the last 10 years before the pandemic and through it, so this is not just the pandemic, feelings of persistent sadness and hopelessness, as well as suicidal thoughts, have increased by 40% amongst young people. I just want you to process that for a minute. That is enormous. The CDC reports that during the pandemic, 29% of high school students had a parent or caregiver who lost their job. How many of them got it back? 55% and were emotionally abused by a parent or caregiver. And 11% were physically abused. This is where students are. And some more data from the Pew Center. This is from March 2023. In US adults, since 2020, 41% of adults have experienced high levels of psychological stress. 18-29, that's 58%. Just by demographics, white is the lowest, Black 42, Hispanic 46, Asian 42. Lower income is 53%, disability is 66%. So the population we serve at community college is disproportionately impacted by the mental health crisis, which explains the emails. This leads to who is a teacher, because the teacher has to be responding to who the student is. The teacher also survived the pandemic. Believe it or not, teachers are human beings, which is often forgotten by many people. A lot of us are dealing with we are frontline emotional responders. It's not a term I came up with. That means we are getting all of that emotion from students. Any teachers here feel that? Can you raise your hand? We are getting it. It's coming to us. We are the first people to get it. And it comes at us in emails. It comes at us in students having panic attacks in class. It comes at us in many different ways. And as a result, these are terms I learned from working on the care team with the wonderful Kathy Bennett and Matt Rojo, Emily Stone, Christy Harrington-Sy, others. I didn't know I was experiencing vicarious trauma and compassion fatigue. So when I wrote that comic where you saw parts of myself hold out, I didn't know that was compassion fatigue and vicarious trauma. Compassion fatigue is basically when you're constantly emotionally responding, there's a point at which you run out of energy. And I'm not trained as a therapist, nor are any teachers, so we don't know how to regulate that. We don't have those processes. Also, at this point in time, we're an ally for marginalized students who, again, are experiencing the brunt of this. And we have had an unprecedented change in our working conditions. And as this is happening, we have a lack of community that would support the individual teacher. That helps us. And as a result, teachers are grappling with immense work-related stress. Now, this is about teachers in K-12, like my partner, Corin, and not professors, but I think we can extrapolate this. So the data shows the blue is teachers, the green are principals. They seem to have the worst time for administrators. And then the gray are just general working adults. Teachers, this is again 2022. Teachers at 73% stress, high levels of stress. Regular working adults, 35%. Burnout, 59% to 44%. Symptoms, depression, 28% to 17%. Not coping well with job-related stress, 24% to 12%. Resilience, way lower. So I think as a result of all the things we're seeing here, this is showing there's a mental health crisis for teachers as well. But we're taught to never show anything to anybody. Our role as teachers have dramatically expanded. We are now a social coach where we have students exhibiting behaviors that you would never see in a college classroom because people have been so far outside of rooms and socializing. We've become a community organizer because many students are dealing with social anxiety. There's something happening. Oh, I'm about to die. Huh? That would have been horrible.
I didn't know that was part of the speech.
So you know what? You guys are running out of batteries too. I'm almost done, I promise. That was a good moment, yes. We're all running out of batteries. So we have to become more of a community organizer because we have a lot more social anxiety and nervousness and fear. And so it takes a lot more work to create community. Any other teachers can see that as well? And the differentiated instruction, this is a term teachers know and students know. It's when you have different levels of skill in the same class. Is right now really difficult because the levels are dramatically different. Not just somewhat different, but dramatically different. So the teacher has to really change things up for different people. Also, we're all hybridized now. That's just a requirement. Whether you're face-to-face or online, you need to be competent in both spaces. You need to be an amateur web designer. And I don't want to get into this, but now we got to be like an AI detective or like a cop. Anyone watch the movie Blade Runner? In Blade Runner, they have to figure out who are androids or who are humans. I feel like now I'm like performing that test. And when you have to be a cop, it kills the relationship with your students. If you're all the time wondering if this paper is written by a human or a robot, it kills the love of reading student work. So that's a dilemma I'm not going to talk about in here. It's one for a future big conversation. And this leads to what is a class. Once we understand who is the teacher, who is the student, what is a class? Well, despite all these changes, the class size is still the same, which is absurd, given everything I've described. The class load is the same, which is absurd, given the job is much larger now. There's insufficient research to respond to the mental health crisis. We have too many students that need things, and we don't have enough. There is almost no training for any teacher on dealing with students in crisis. Am I right about that, teacher? You can get them. Now, when you look at training for Canvas, we had fantastic training done by the DE team. I want to shout them out. We need that training for dealing with the mental health crisis. It's of equal importance. And the classrooms, by the way, are essentially the same. Like we have literally, they just look the same, but they have a nice coat of paint. Except for the art building, which is dope. If you haven't been there, that building is in the 21st century. So this is the closing sort of appeal. How do we make sure that our institutions are a place of healing rather than perpetuating trauma? And how do we unlock that power in the room? Well, we've got to put community back into community college. We need to focus on belonging to make it here. We need to move from a factory metaphor to a familial metaphor, right? When you catch somebody with ChatGPT and you're treating it like a factory line, how do you respond to them? You treat them like a criminal. You take them off the factory line, you report them. If it's a member of your family, how do you respond to them? Doesn't mean you don't get consequences, right? But you treat them in a fundamentally different way. You think about them in a different way. And that's it. I'm proposing that we intentionally embed that kind of way of thinking as opposed to it's easy to fall into the factory way of thinking. Because again, that's the underlying ideology of most educational student systems in the West. I come back to my father and my son. When I teach, I think about what if my son is in the classroom? What if my father is there? And I try to think about how would I treat them, and that's how I try to engage in my job. And that's my proposal, whatever position we have of power, that we think about those people as our family. And again, that doesn't mean that you don't give consequences, you're not real with people, but you think about them fundamentally not as a product, but as a person. I know that's cheesy, but I think we need that. A lot of us have forgotten how to be people in the last couple of years. And I want to quote from Dr. Eric Handy, who spoke at the convocation, who is doing a lot of stuff. He's about to be the Dean of Equity and Student Engagement. And what he said was students need a sacred, safe place for convening. If you want to do this, it's not just like, hey, let's do it. You have to really intentionally build these spaces. All the teachers here know it's really hard work. Am I right about that? Whether it's in-ground or online, it doesn't just happen. A classroom is not a room, and in a lot of our classes are not in rooms anymore. It's a sacred space for community. And something that Eric Handy said is that, he loves like the show Cheers, where you come in and everybody knows your name. That's what the classroom space should be. Everybody knows each other. And we need to create authentic community that focus on collaboration, drawing on student backgrounds with meaningful assignments that are designed for humans and not bots. Because students will use ChatGPT if they're feeling like the assignment's for a robot. If it feels like it's a factory line assignment, why not use the ChatGPT factory? And this requires all of us to create that space. And to do this, we need human teachers and students. And ChatGPT gave this to me again, the reasoning as to why human teachers are needed, but actually it's a pretty good answer. That we provide personalized guidance to support students. We create course content. AI can do that soon. And AI will never fully replace the human touch and interaction that's necessary. And education is not just about acquiring knowledge, but also personal growth and development. And that can't happen without community, and it can't happen without humanity. Thank you, ChatGPT. Lastly, almost the power on campus. These are the winners of the James O'Keefe Prize for Graphic Literature, the Student Comics Contest. That is Arthur King, who does it with me. And this is work by Vicky Cordova, who is in 2 major communities. She's a Prentista, and she's the president of the DVC Pride Alliance. And she made a 45-page full-color comic called My Life as a Magical Girl. And here's part of it. Look at this. Just knock that off there. By the order of the celestial principles, I reveal my true self. The truth is, I am Belinda Rose. How does she create this without such great community and sense of belonging? That to me is student success. The Puma Center is a powerful space on campus. Anthony Gonzalez from Puente sent me this picture of, this is the Puente Familia, all together celebrating the birthday of one of their SI leaders. That's what we mean about a family space. And you go in there and it feels like a family space. And I want to give the biggest shout out to the Ask Center, where I spent a lot of time. And the Ask Center, which is illustrated here by Pete, is not just a place with some computers and desks, but it's really like a happy place. I overheard a student just say this: the Ask is a happy place. And this is like what Eric was talking about, a sacred, safe space for students, counselors, tutors, and professionals to come together and to compete at work. Yes. And that is Austin, one of our assistant football coaches, and he's in the Ask all the time. And Megan's there, Shalise, Solomon, the counselor, and many more folks. By the way, that's a drawing of Ask Center people from one of Austin's kids. And when you step in there, you feel like it's a comfortable place to be, right? And unlike a classroom where there's a clear hierarchy, there is no hierarchy there. You just can come in, talk to a counselor, talk to a tutor, talk to me. And where the story I want to share about Austin is that one day there were a bunch of like female athletes, and they were like sitting there and they should have been in class. And he knows that and said, "You need to be going to Katie Agno's class." They're like, "Nah, like we don't want to do that." And he's like acting sort of like a brotherly or fatherly figure. "No, get your butts and go to Katie's class." And they're like, "Fine." And they went to Katie's class. That to me is the family model in action. Not factory model is you will earn bad grade, you don't go class, but a human model. And it works, I think. This is the conclusion. Susie, the student that dropped out. You remember her? Well, Susie's in the Ask Center. And I got a chance to interview Susie about what happened, which was amazing. And I'm going to step over this table. There's so many, this is like a 21st century issue. Susie was there and said, "Hey, Mr. Bessie, you remember me?" And oh my God, what are you doing here? So I asked her what she was doing, and she said, "You know, in your class, like my house was super loud, my internet was bad, my parents didn't think it was real school, and I just couldn't do it. I had no motivation. And so then I stopped doing assignments and I started getting zeros and zeros and zeros, which a lot of students know this feeling. And then I just wanted to give up, but I didn't know how to withdraw from class. So I just stayed there. And then over summer, Susie decided to come back, and she enrolled in an asynchronous class, but enrolled with a friend. Again, that family sense of belonging, stay together, like work together, not like doing the papers together, but they worked together and supported each other. And by the end of that semester, she said, "You know, I really want to push myself. Like, I'm nervous around people. I think I want to become a tutor." So she came back and is actually a tutor in the Ask Center. In person, you can see Susie. That's not her name. I changed it. She wanted me not to say her name. And she just talked about how it really has built her confidence so much. That's success. You can't see that in the numbers. She came back and returned and became like an even stronger person. And one thing she said to me that I'll end you on is, she said, "I still remember the story you taught me in that class." This was, 3 years ago, called "The Ones Who Walk Away from Amelia" by Ursula K. Le Guin. Anyone know this story? A couple of people do. It's about I'll be very quick, a utopia in which everybody's happy, it's perfect, it's lovely, there's music, there's dancing, there's orgies. There's only one catch, and the catch is there's a child in the basement that's horribly abused. And everybody knows about it. And that's the price of living in this place. Now, it's a hypothetical thing. And every child is brought down to a certain age to see this abused person, and they get to make a choice. Do they stay and live with this social contract, or do they walk away and leave? She said, "I thought about that question you posed to us, do we stay or leave?" And she said, "I decided I don't like those options. I would go and I would change the situation. I think it's wrong. You shouldn't just leave or stay. You should stop the problem." And that's my final note. Instead of walking away, we need to like lean in and change the situation. And I'm not gonna do that. This is the end, this is what I'm arguing we need to do. If we want folks to return to the physical campus, not magic, the things we have to do. We have to make it feel safe to be here for everybody. We need investment in modern, clean, well-maintained, and inclusive spaces. We need classrooms to be meeting students and teachers that are hybrid, and functional. And we need more shared spaces like the Puma Center and the Half Center where community gets created and students feel like they belong. We need to reinvent the class. We need to think about it not as a room, but a community, whether it's online or on ground. I have it twice here because it's the most important. We need smaller class sizes. We really cannot do this work anymore with the size of classes now. We cannot. We need them if we're going to make authentic community and retain students and do the work we're doing. We need much more intentional connections to counseling support services in the larger PVC community, such as providing like programs like Puente. And we do need awareness of how for-profit tech platforms are now entering into our family space and need to be aware before we insert them, what are we signing on for? But that's a conversation for another time, and I'm sure Mickey Huff will get into with you guys. And last but not least, this is the big one. We need to, I don't know how long to take, but we need to redefine the industrial era concept of success to a more human and community-centric definition that incorporates wellness as sustainable practice, and money comes for that. We need more training for teachers and everyone in dealing with student mental illness and trauma, and we need more support for everybody on that front. We can do it. Let's do it. That's it. Thank you. I want to take a shout out. These folks, like, I have to do a write-up and have all these folks to like co-sign on the proposal. That doesn't mean they agree with everything I said. Just so you know. I didn't tell them. Servando Pineda, messed up your name, Servando, sorry. He is a wonderful math professor. Really, I wish I had him all throughout my life. And Kingsley, who's right here, give Anna a hand. Really a hero and the DE team of helping us survive the pandemic. Albert Ponce, a wonderful, we'll give a hand to him tomorrow, wonderful social justice professor. Christy Harrington-Side, care team, Anthony Gonzalez, Puente, and Mickey Huff, who helped edit the book, and Dr. Eric Handy, and Matthew Powell, and Austin as well. So you can see a broad assortment of people who were involved. Again, that doesn't mean they agree with me. And my folks are not watching this now, but I love them. And my son, and this one, Cora, who's also a high school teacher, give her a hand. Yeah. How long is it? 1 hour. Okay, cool. All right, cool. So, my book is available in the bookstore. I don't care if you buy it or not. I mean, literally, you know how much money I get out of each book? I really just did this for the love of talking about this issue. But if you want to read more of it, there's a lot more, even than this in here. So are there any questions you guys have, or comments, or anything I can do about this? Because I would love to do that.
And we will, so everyone online, you have the ability to use chat. You can also unmute yourself. Mickey Huff says, here, here, surveillance capitalism.
That's for Mickey.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, and I love Ian Black. That's the power of the room.
So I had so much happened over the pandemic personally, professionally, but I had like a profound realization. It makes me like tear up, but I was like, the way I've been teaching has been amazing, but authenticity and vulnerability to my students and offering that in return for them to be authentic and vulnerable for me is one of the most powerful things I could possibly experience with my students. And we did it in Zoom, and you know, just a ton of like ways of action. I had like tiny moments, like one of my daughter was crying and she was really upset, and one of the students had like it was in Hong Kong and it was, you know, totally different time, and you want to help on a paper, and Nina was crying, and he had all these like, he had like a bookshelf behind him, and, you know, like you said, like people sculpted their life behind them. And he had like little Toy Story things on it, and like he held up each one for her to calm down. You know, and it was like, I don't remember what, I'm sure his paper was really good, like, I think it was on my pre-delivery systems, which I was really into. Because I love those moments where I could learn from my students on things I don't know about, but like, for me, I was like, I cannot, it was so crystal clear for me, it's like a crystalline moment in my life where I was like, I cannot lose this when the world is different again.
Yeah.
And like, and so for me coming back, it's not that it's always like that, there's sometimes I'm caught in my head or overthink or whatever, but I'm like, I love continuing those moments for students where I really get to see them as human beings. Like, and that idea like of like a whole heart is a broken heart, a broken human is a whole human. Like I want to see like the pieces and the whole, and that is really important to me as I move forward and teaching practice. And I wanted to know, like for you, you had extremely profound experiences, personal, professional, like family, home, cancer, students, like the kind of emotional storm, but also in a beautiful way, an emotional clarity probably. Are there things you bring into your teaching practice now that are different because of that?
You should give the speech. That was pretty good. Well, you were the faculty lecturer last year. I like what you just said about bringing the vulnerability back in. I think again, to go back to the factory metaphor, if you work in a factory, you show no emotions in your work. And I think, and I have a hard time not being myself, as some people maybe have known, for better or for worse. But I do think, as you saw in the one image where I said I put on my sort of mask, I do think throughout my teaching career, you know, you learn early in your career to shut your feelings down and then feel them later. Like, for example, going to the bathroom. You learn early on, I will have to not go to the bathroom and wait till the class is over. But you could project that out to any number of feelings you're having. So to answer that question of, from the pandemic, I think I'm trying to be more human. And I think that's part of the work of getting away from the factory model, is trying to be more vulnerable, which is why I'm here being very open about living with cancer, which is something for many years I walled off from anybody, because my fear was that if my students or other people knew I had a brain tumor, they would think that I wouldn't be able to teach. Because there's many stereotypes about people with cancer, especially brain cancer. And so I think the book is in part trying to bring a vulnerability. And I would say I try to bring that into the class. But I do think, as you said so eloquently, when you come back in some ways, some of those things harden back into old patterns. So I'm going to think about that more. But I think I think that I try to bring the vulnerability in, but I mean, it's that line between who is Adam and who's Professor B, I think is still there. Great comment, yeah.
Yeah, question. First of all, I want to start off saying how strong you are going through the cancer treatments, as I've had family members, close ones that had cancer treatment as well,
Thank you.
and like loved ones that have cancer as well. So my question to you is, how do you feel about like students dropping your courses, and what can you do to combat that? You know, like what does it make you feel as a teacher?
That's a great question. This semester I've had a lot of students drop my courses, and it feels awful. A lot more than I've seen before, and it sends me, like many teachers, into a spiral of, what did I do wrong? That's always the first sort of thing, like, and then like going over with a fine-tooth comb, like interactions with that person and all kinds of stuff. So it doesn't feel good. At the same time, you know, I take a step back and realize I'm not that important. That makes sense, like, so that first reaction is, man, I'm really bummed out about this, what happened? Then the second thought process is, look at all these things happening in the world. So immediately when, I feel that a student is on the pathway to dropping, and if it's been in my class knows, what do I do if you miss an assignment? Some of you guys never miss an assignment, so you don't know. I reach out. So I'm like a retention specialist, so I'm always have a practice of reaching out and asking how people are and try to do my best to retain people. Because that's what I would do for my son or my father. But that takes a lot of work. And that again goes back to my smaller class sizes. If you want us to do that work of retaining people, that's emotional labor. And it's not easy, right? So I feel, to return to your question, I feel like when I see the drops, I feel like the things I said at the end, the suggestions are ways to decrease those drops. I think if we have a better sense of belonging and better services, less people will drop. Right? And more importantly, people will be happier and more engaged and can persist in their education and not just get through it. So not just I, but I think every teacher in this room and administrator really thinks about it a lot. Not just because we get paid for enrollment, because what else is the point of our job, So yeah, no, I take it, in some cases I take it personally, in other cases, it's clear that the student's not turning anything in and, I'm trying to help them. And at that point I have to say, well, I believe you'll be able to come back another time. And I think that's something I feel as well, is that what's great about community college is you can come back. And I've had many students like the one I described to you, Susie, who disappeared and came back and now is well on her way to being successful. I think about my dad who had to drop out of community college to fight in Korea, and he came back. And he returned. And so when a student drops, if I'm able to communicate with them, which oftentimes I can't, because they're out, I try to say, well, next time I hope you come back and you find me and we help you. But yeah, it's not fun. And this semester, just being very honest, the number of drops have been not fun. And so it's something to think about. Yeah, thank you. Good question.
Adam, we have a question from Mickey
Oh, what a
online.
surprise.
It says, maybe discuss how you and Pete work together on a work like this. The narrative and illustrations are powerful together.
Yeah, thank you, Mickey. That's a good pitch for getting done. So yes, this is a really unusual project because I wrote it and then somebody else drew it. Pete was a fantastic artist. And so, many comics people, they write and draw themselves. In like superhero comics, they do tend to have teams of people that work on it, but in memoir, it's extremely unusual. The only other examples I can think of are people like Harvey Tegar, who's in a movie called American Splendor, but it tends to be very rare. So the process, well, number one, I want to say like this book was a work of therapy for me, like art therapy. Because I could like talk out things with another person and then create images out of them. So it was for me first. And any good art should be for the artist first, in my opinion. And then if it resonates with that person, then hopefully that truth will resonate with others. So the process Pete and I had, and I've worked with many artists, was that I would come up with a script or like a story. And it usually started in my little notebook where I would draw horrible drawings and put boxes and think about things and write about I journal a lot. Since I was in middle school, like I have like a notebook and just write things or draw things, so I would do that. And then someone will say, oh, this feels like this could turn into something other people would be interested in. So then I'd write out a script and it looks kind of like a movie script, if you've ever seen one of those, but a bit different. I number each panel, I put it together. Then I usually go through like a couple of versions myself until I feel like I could show it to Pete. And then Pete looks at it and gives me his notes. And he notes me his criticism. And he also has a master's in English on top of having a master's in comics. is you can get an MFA in comics at CCA, College of the Arts. So he, yeah, he's fantastic. So the problem with comics is it is extremely labor intensive. So that book took, over 2 years, and you'll read it in 30 minutes. It's so labor intensive because every page, I can't even tell you how long it takes just to make one page. You first have to have the script, then you have to do something called the thumbnail, which is the general composition of the page. Then you do like firmer outlines of it, and then you have to ink it. And then it's just very labor intensive. So our process would be, we go back and forth on the script for a while. And usually it would be cutting the script because, as you can tell from this, I'm verbose. So I would overwrite, and I would know when I was overwriting that there were things that he would truncate or make clear. And so I would overwrite it, and I'd have like, oh, this is a cool idea or that, and be like, in a nice way. Well, yeah, but that would be 5 more pages, and then it would take us longer. And we had a deadline. We had 8 months to basically finish the book. So things had to get done, like every 6 weeks, we had to get something done and move on. It was like a factory, an art factory. So we go back and forth, and then we'd agree upon a script that was like, now let's start drawing. So we do this all over Zoom, by the way. He lives in Portland. So there's an irony here of some kind. Right, so we do it over Zoom, and he would actually sometimes draw on the call, like I see Cloud College looking like this, and I say, that's cool, draw that. And then he would doodle stuff, and I'd look at his doodles, and then I sometimes would have notes, like, okay, I like this and this, but this thing I'm not sure about. We'd get that set, and then he'd say, okay, are we ready to like firmly draw stuff? And because then when he firmly draws it, that's really labor intensive, and then any change is like enormous work. So that would be the process, and we did it in 2021. I mean, I started this in 2020. Then I took a year off, just trying to learn how to like teach online. And then I came back to it when the publisher, Censored Press and Censored Press said, hey, do you want to pitch the whole book to us? I said, sure, not knowing how much work that was, a crazy amount of work. And so then that was the process, but it really felt like, and I talk about this in the end of the book, there's a kind of like an interview with me and Pete. It felt like a band event. Like I have some instruments I play, he has some he plays, and so we would go back and forth until we got the final product. And it was very satisfying. And we still collaborating. I have a new piece that's coming out next month in a Mother magazine. It's called Mother Magazine. It's designed for parents. That's another thing. And I do have another book I'm probably working on with him, but I don't like to talk about things till I know that I have an idea. But that's the process. It's really fun, but it's really labor intensive. Other questions? Yeah.
I don't actually have a question. I just wanted to acknowledge.
Oh, questions only.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that Adam was very much instrumental in building Larry's graphic novels collection, which pre-pandemic was probably the most heavily after textbooks circulated part of our collection.
Yeah.
Pre-pandemic, that whole area was always messed up. It was like we can't keep it up because it's always being checked out, and some of them disappear. And I hope you get enjoy reading it.
That's why I don't lend out my graphic novels anymore, because every time I lend one out of my collection, you know.
Yeah, so we're hoping we get back to a point where that section is met again. But I also wanted to acknowledge, your assistance in, helping us curate the book display in February, which features African-American experiences as portrayed in graphic novels, and also helping for next month for the API Heritage Month, helping buy more books for that display. Really grateful.
Thank you.
I also wanted to comment on 2 things that you brought up, which I'm so glad you did, which is the importance of training when it comes to mental health.
Yeah.
I mean, we all went to grad school and we didn't really get official training, right? And it's just so ironic that I mean, I know it's important, but we have to spend like what, an hour, because we're required to watch that sexual harassment, every 2 years, and I'm like, I've already done this. But like, can we do something about more concrete that really affects us, which would be nice to have some training for us, instructors, in terms of how to deal with students, and, issues. I'm also grateful that you brought up, the need to have more modern facilities. So many of our students, always ask for places where their study group can meet. We have 10 study rooms in the library, they're always occupied. We have so much turnover rates, and it's really hard to find spaces on campus for that. I mean, hopefully we'll have more buildings like the art, but with more spaces really for students to gather.
Sure. Thank you. Great comment. Thank you. Graphic novel collection is really good.
Yeah, you guys gotta check it out, it's pretty good, and thank you.
Hey, Joella, good to see you.
Hi.
Joella's in one of my classes right now.
Yeah, so speaking from a student's perspective, I just wanted to say thank you for considering trauma-informed trainings. Because as I wrote in your class, that was something that I definitely needed growing up, seeing a statistic that during the pandemic, people were, emotionally abused and physically abused. And, I hear that that's what I experienced growing up. And so being able to have a professor that, sees me, that is so, makes me emotional. It's very
Don't
encouraging.
make me emotional. I can't show my vulnerable side like that.
Right, questions only. But, I just want to commend you because it really does make a difference in an educational journey, because it is a journey. And I hope to one day have a PhD like some of these people in the room. And, having teachers like you, advocating for people who couldn't talk about this before the pandemic. And if I'm honest, I did lose my dad to COVID-19, and that kind of exacerbated, my mental health. And so, things are not the same as they were before, and acknowledging that is very important. Smaller classes are very helpful. I mean, I'm sorry that teachers are losing students, but in my opinion, I do like smaller classes. It's more intimate, and it creates a space, for me to talk to my peers, talk to my professors, and, really grow. And so just thank you.
Thank you. Do you mind if I tell them what you wrote about?
I don't mind.
So the first unit in the 122 is about what you would change in the education system. So Joella wrote a paper about the importance of having trauma-informed pedagogy used in classrooms, and interviewed our mental health professor, Kathy Bennett, like went out of your way to do that, and wrote a really compelling paper about the need for that. And so thank you for that. And I have no doubt you'll be up here someday, or you'll be my boss. That'd be fine. Thank you. Thank you. That's really kind. Great. Yeah. Any other questions or comments from the internet or from here?
I'm just wondering, why is the book search not even so cheap?
How much are they selling it for?
I added it to the library record.
Yeah.
It's $12.84.
Oh, because Mickey is one of the publishers, so he gave it a cut rate. I'm happy with that. It doesn't affect how much I make, so whatever. That's great. I'm glad they're charging that much. I thought it was 19.
$18.99.
Yeah, well, you got a deal for being here. That makes me happy. I like that. Anything else? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just so much of this resonated, and I really appreciate it. And I think the thing for me that I've been struggling with the past couple of years is how to articulate that our job has gotten harder.
Yes.
And I think there's almost like a self-gaslighting that happens at some of us, where we're like, well, no, maybe it hasn't, maybe it's in my head, maybe it's not more work than it used to be. And well, maybe coming to campus, it'll just go back to how it was. And I think I think the way that you captured it it is not, we are going to come back to campus, but the extra work and the extra burden is going to stay with us. And hopefully we can use that and articulate that to people that make decisions in a way that is not sounding like faculty, just like, we're complaining, but like, this will allow us to better serve our students. The small classes, especially the class sizes and the drops, I mean, so many times I've seen students and gone, if I had fewer of you, I could help more of you, and I'm gonna have to just let you go because I have to sleep. And I think like, I just wanted to thank you because I think that's it. You articulated it exactly what I kind of needed to hear.
That's it. I think to answer your question, smaller class sizes equal less drops. Too many students, we can't put the kind of care in our practice that retains people and makes them feel a sense of belonging. No matter who the person is. As you said, people have to sleep. We're human beings.
And you can't create a sense, it's hard to create a sense of belonging in a class of 42.
Yeah.
Like it's hard.
Oh, you, okay, I have 30 my cap, so I'm gonna be quiet. Anything else? Yeah, what's up, man? Chris?
So I think, you know, for a long time, there's been a discrepancy between, you know, what those on the front lines and talking see as success and what the metrics, right, rate as success. I don't think that's just a COVID phenomenon. I think that's something that we've known for a long time, that sometimes the success to me doesn't look like the success being challenged. But I think COVID has perhaps shown a spotlight on it, or has brought into starker relief. And I guess from a more practical perspective, what I'm wondering is, do you see any pathway by which this moment can lead to real change in terms of like at the broader systemic level, how we define success and how we measure that and how we do funding and all that stuff?
That's a really hard question. I'm gonna answer it as concisely as we can. I think people are getting tired. Not me though. I'm drinking Diet Coke at almost every night. I'm gonna be up all night, dude. My wife could be pissed at me. So this has been a problem since long before. I've been writing essays about this factory model and the success model for like 15 years. You know, so this model is pretty deeply entrenched. And it's bipartisan. So it's not just a Republican or Democratic thing, it is kind of. So that's, I think, when you look at where these ideas come from, again, they're agreed upon by the powerful folks, even in a left-wing state. So how do you mobilize that change when there's sort of a block of folks that think standardized testing is great? My son is taking a shit ton of them, pardon my language, right now this week. You know, and they had a pep rally for standardized testing at a school. I am not joking, a pep rally. My son's school is, he's like the only blonde kid in the whole school. It's like very racially and economically diverse, and they're just standardized testing. And this again is, Obama did it, Bush did it. I don't know what Trump did, he did nothing, but he kept it going. Biden's doing it, there's no political will. So that's my nihilistic answer. But why would I make this book or do this talk if I didn't believe there was a pathway forward? So for me, the pathway is we, number one, need to change, not number one, but what I'm trying to do with this book is trying to change the narrative, who controls the narrative around public schooling. If you look at the narrative in major publications, it is not dominated by frontline teachers. Who are the talking heads? People at think tanks, presidents of universities, no offense, but not even them usually. It's not people that are in the classroom. And so we don't have the levers of power. And so what that requires, and again, you'd have to talk to some of my political science folks, like, I'm gonna sit down, my leg. One of my things for my brain surgery is my leg is really tired. So I'm gonna sit. We need to get a place at the table politically and on the media, but I think it starts with having more teacher voices in prominent spaces. And if we can get more teacher voices uncensored in speaking, I think that can help push things in a direction where we can advocate for the kind of changes we want. But I think I think to be very frank, that utopian vision, I mean, I'm a professor of utopias and dystopias, science fiction. What I want, I think, to get there in reality is a multi-generational vision. I don't see it as anything that can be done now, so when I'm thinking about, I'm thinking my timeline is like, tomorrow, before my next lecture, I have to grade a bunch of papers, including some people that are in this room right now. And so I have to think about, in the present, what do I do in my sphere of his work? So what I do is I don't treat their papers like I'm in an assembly line, I treat them like people. You know, that's something I can do within my sphere of effect. And then this book is trying to affect a larger sphere so other people make those choices and then ultimately finding ways to advocate in the long run for a more human-centric system. But again, I think I'll end on a nihilistic note. I think, well, I don't want to end on that note. So someone will ask me another question, make a comment that could make it end on a more positive note. I just think the era we're in right now is I feel like we're rationing public education. When you look at the bill AB 705, a bill that the state legislature passed right before COVID, it eliminated all developmental English classes. Meaning those students still all exist, now there's just no classes for that. And so that's part of the reason I believe we have high drop rates, is we have students that otherwise would have had courses that met them where they are, and now those courses do not exist. You know, and so the state, and this is again a Democratic Congress that put this through, I don't know the degree of teacher involvement in that. I may have a bad opinion on this, but that's a new state law. And I don't see the trend lines moving towards a lot of what I'm talking about, except for in terms of mental health. I know that there's more money being infused from the state for mental health, so I think there's a positive trend line there. But I think that's why I ended on this note from that statement from that student, you can change the situation. I think that if we're not gonna change things at all, if we give into the nihilism of the moment, which is, I think, pretty easy to give into. So, and this is kind of a discombobulated answer, but that's where my thinking is. I think it's a very hard problem, to be honest, but I think there's things we can do in the present and work towards the sort of the ultimate dream of community college, which is to give everybody an equal opportunity to live the kind of life they want to live.
I think, Adam, you can give your talk in Sacramento
Yeah,
a few times.
You might be able to interpret this comment from Peter.
so my artist,
A picture of a surfer followed by a picture of a standard poodle.
Pete is a hella random funny dude, I have no idea what that is. He
And
sends me lots of, he makes awesome t-shirts out of, like, he's one of a wiener dog. He's got another one, like, he's an amazing artist. Pete, what are you doing this for? What do you want?
he sent French fries.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Pete. So this is what we're friends too. He sends me.
And a heart.
And a heart. I like that one. Thank you, Pete. Maybe we'll make a t-shirt with the French fries for my next talk.
Any other questions from online or in?
I can also just talk to people individually if people are like ready to get out of here.
We're good, we have time.
All right, guys, this is like really meant a lot to me and I hope it was worth your time. Thank you. I was like standing here and I was like, I'm about to like keel over here.
Again, I want to thank, on behalf of the Academic Senate, thank Adam for his presentation. Thank you all for being here. We have an abundance of
Pizza.
caffeine and cookies and pizza in the back. It's a well-rounded college meal right there. Help yourself. And, tomorrow, 12:45,
I'll do it again.
back here.
I don't know if we'll be able to do this again, dude.
And invite your students. Thank you all.
Hey, thanks guys for coming.
Yeah, no worries.
Hopefully it was worth your time, dude. Yeah, thank you. And you're right in the front row, you couldn't leave, dude. You gotta, you know, you gotta like, you gotta be super back. If you have to leave, you're leaving.
Bye.